AP sources, shipping tycoon helps Venezuela in quest for gas.
美联社资料，航运大亨帮助委内瑞拉寻求天然气。
Joshua Goodman and Scott Smith.
约书亚·古德曼和斯科特·史密斯7-9。
Minutes Caracas, Venezuela AP. With gas lines across Venezuela growing, a controversial shipping magnate has stepped in to prevent the country from running out of fuel amid the coronavirus pandemic, the Associated Press has learned.
委内瑞拉加拉加斯，美联社。据美联社了解，随着遍布委内瑞拉的天然气管道不断扩大，一位备受争议的航运巨头已经介入，以防止该国在冠状病毒大流行期间燃料耗尽。
The fuel shortage, in the nation that sits atop the world's largest crude reserves, is the latest threat to Nicolas Maduro's rule at a time he is under intense U.S. pressure to resign.
在这个拥有世界上最大原油储量的国家，燃料短缺是尼古拉斯·马杜罗统治面临的最新威胁。此时他正面临着美国强大的辞职压力。
Wilmer Ruperty, Esmeralda Trading Incorporated built state-owned oil monopoly PDVSA €12 million last month for the purchase of up to 250,000 barrels of 95-octane gasoline, according to a copy of the invoice obtained by AP. The gasoline was purchased from an undisclosed Middle Eastern country, said two people familiar with the transaction. They agreed to discuss the sensitive dealings only on condition of anonymity.
据美联社获得的一份发票副本显示，威尔莫·鲁珀蒂
Wilmer Ruperty
旗下的
Oil Trading Incorporated
上个月向国有石油垄断企业
PDVSA
开出了1200万欧元的账单，购买了多达25万桶95号辛烷值汽油。据两位知情人士透露，这批汽油是从一个未披露身份的中东国家购买的。他们同意在匿名的条件下讨论这些敏感交易。
The single gas shipment ISNT going to resolve Venezuela's supply problems. But with the economy paralyzed, any amount of fuel is welcome relief, analysts said.
仅仅一船天然气并不能解决委内瑞拉的供应问题，但分析师表示，随着经济陷入瘫痪，任何数量的燃料都是值得欢迎的安慰。
Ruperty, a former oil tanker captain, has a history coming to the rescue of Venezuela as socialist government at critical junctures, something that endeared him to the late President Hugo Ch.
With a cute
Vez.
前油轮船长鲁珀蒂有在关键时刻拯救委内瑞拉社会主义政府的历史，这使他受到已故总统乌戈查维斯的喜爱。
But his latest gambit, which could help stave off a deepening humanitarian crisis, is bound to irritate the Trump administration, which this week doubled down on its campaign of support for opposition leader Juan Guaidó by sending Navy ships to the Caribbean on the counter-narcotics mission following Maduro's indictment in the U.S. on narco-terrorist charges.
但他的最新策略可能有助于避免不断加深的人道主义危机。这势必会激怒特朗普政府。本周，在马杜罗因毒品恐怖主义指控在美国受到起诉后，特朗普政府派遣海军舰艇前往加勒比地区执行反毒品任务，加大了对反对派领导人胡安·瓜伊德
Juan Guaidó
的支持力度。
Venezuela's oil fields and refineries have crumbled from years of mismanagement. More recently, fuel imports have dried up as the Trump administration tightened sanctions, targeting two trading houses owned by Russia's Rosneft for providing a lifeline to Maduro. Then came the coronavirus, which sent crude prices crashing and paralyzed what little was left of domestic production.
委内瑞拉的油田和炼油厂由于多年管理不善而破产。最近，随着特朗普政府加强制裁，燃料进口已经枯竭，制裁对象是俄罗斯石油公司
Rosneft
旗下的两家贸易公司，因为他们为马杜罗提供了一条生命线。随后，冠状病毒爆发，导致原油价格暴跌， 国内仅存的一点生产陷入瘫痪。
In Venezuela, the only thing spreading faster than the coronavirus are the gasoline shortages, said Russ Dallin, head of Caracas Capital Markets.
加拉加斯资本市场
Caracas Capital Markets.
主管拉斯达伦
Russ Dallin
表示，在委内瑞拉，唯一比冠状病毒传播速度更快的就是汽油短缺。
In recent days, gas lines have popped up across Caracas, which is typically immune from days-long waits common in the rest of the country. Most stations had closed as supplies ran out.
最近几天，加拉加斯各地的天然气管道涌现出来。这个国家的其他地区通常不会出现长时间等待的情况。由于补给品用完，大多数加油站都关闭了。
At one of the few gas stations still open in the capital Thursday, hundreds of cars, taxis and trucks hugged the shoulder of a highway as heavily armed soldiers stared down motorists, some of whom had been waiting 3 days to fill up.
周四，在首都为数不多的几个仍在营业的加油站之一，数百辆汽车、出租车和卡车紧贴着高速公路的路肩，全副武装的士兵盯着司机。其中一些人已经等了3天才加油。
Among those in the 3-kilometer-long line was Javier Serrano, who relies on a beat-up blue 1968 Ford Falcon to eke out a meager living as a taxi driver.
在3公里长的队伍中，哈维尔·塞拉诺
Javier Serrano
就是其中之一。他靠一辆破旧的蓝色1968年款福特猎鹰
Ford Falcon
勉强维持出租车司机的微薄生活。
There, a curfew at night and no public transportation, he said. One of my relatives could die at home because they don't have a vehicle.
晚上有宵禁，没有公共交通工具。他说，我的一个亲戚可能会死在家里，因为他们没有车。
The government blames the gas shortages on U.S. aggression. On Friday, it said it was formulating a special fuel supply plan to restore stockpiles in the shortest possible time, allowing the nation to combat the coronavirus.
政府将天然气短缺归咎于美国的侵略。上周五，中国政府表示，正在制定一项特殊燃料供应计划，以便在尽可能短的时间内恢复库存。从而使中国能够打击这种冠状病毒。
We deplore the position of extremist sectors of the Venezuelan opposition that collude with foreign governments to plan and execute these actions against the Venezuelan people, said Industry Minister Tarek El Aissami. History will mercilessly judge these traitors.
委内瑞拉工业部长
Tarek El Aissami
说，我们谴责委内瑞拉反对派的极端分子与外国政府勾结。策划并实施这些针对委内瑞拉人的行动，历史将无情地审判这些叛徒。
Enter Ruperty to help again. In 2002, he chartered a fleet of Russian tankers to import gasoline amid a months-long strike at PDVSA seeking to remove Chavez. More recently, he funded the defense of First Lady Sylvia Flores' 2 nephews in a politically charged U.S. narcotics trial as well as that of American Joshua Holt, who was held for 2 years in a Caracas jail on what were seen as trumped-up weapons charges.
进入
Ruperty
再次帮助。2002年，他租用了一支俄罗斯邮轮船队进口汽油，期间在
PDVSA
进行了长达数月的罢工，试图罢免查韦斯。最近，他资助了第一夫人西利亚·弗洛雷斯的2个侄子在美国一场政治性的毒品审判中的辩护，以及美国人乔舒亚·霍尔特的辩护。霍尔特因被认为捏造的武器指控在加拉加斯被关押了2年。
Ruperty was decorated by Chavez with military honors for breaking the strike and saw his business as a prize PDVSA contractor boom. Ruperti showed his gratitude by giving the leftist leader 2 pistols used by independence hero Simon Bolivar, which reportedly cost him $1.6 million later. However, he was sued by a unit of the Russian shipping company for allegedly paying millions in bribes.
鲁珀蒂因打破罢工而被查韦斯授予军事荣誉勋章。他认为自己的生意是
PDVSA
的一个宝贵的承包商繁荣。为了表示感谢，鲁珀蒂给了这位左翼领导人2支独立英雄西蒙·玻利瓦尔
Simon Bolivar
使用的手枪。据报道，这2支手枪花费了鲁珀蒂160万美元。然而，后来他被这家俄罗斯船运公司的一个部门起诉，罪名是涉嫌行贿数百万美元。
Ruperti declined to comment.
鲁珀蒂拒绝置评。
While U.S. sanctions have driven away from Venezuela many established shipping companies and commodity traders, Ruperti appears to be little phased.
尽管美国的制裁已经将许多老牌航运公司和大宗商品交易商赶出了委内瑞拉，但鲁珀蒂似乎并不担心。
One of the documents obtained by AP shows his Swiss-based Oil Trading AG opened accounts in dollars, euros and rubles at Moscow-based Durzova Bank in November. One person said the gas that Oil billed to PDVSA should arrive to Venezuela in the coming days. Dallin estimates it's enough to supply current demand for about a week.
美联社获得的一份文件显示，他在瑞士的
Oil Trading AG
去年11月在莫斯科的
Durzova
银行开设了美元、欧元和卢布账户。一位知情人士表示，
Oil
向
PDVSA
开出的天然气账单应该会在未来几天抵达委内瑞拉。达伦估计，这足以满足目前1周的需求。
There have been only 5 deaths in Venezuela so far due to the coronavirus, and most Venezuelans are closely observing a government-mandated lockdown. But concerns are rising that the already collapsed healthcare system will be overwhelmed if more people are infected. Protests have started to emerge among farmers who complain that their produce is rotting because they can't transport it to urban centers.
迄今为止，委内瑞拉只有5人死于冠状病毒。大多数委内瑞拉人正密切关注政府强制实施的封锁，但人们越来越担心，如果更多人受到感染，已经崩溃的医疗体系将不堪重负。农民们开始抗议，他们抱怨自己的农产品因为无法运到市中心而腐烂。
An acute gasoline shortage at this juncture would bring about a serious worsening of the country's humanitarian crisis, putting Venezuelans' lives at even greater risk, said Francisco Rodriguez, a Venezuelan economist who launched Oil for Venezuela, a U.S.-based group lobbying for sanctions relief.
一位委内瑞拉经济学家说，在这个关键时刻，严重的汽油短缺将导致国家人道主义危机的严重恶化，使委内瑞拉人民的生命处于更大的危险之中。委内瑞拉弗朗西斯科·罗德里格斯，足球员，1995年出生，说：下划线。